This is one of the oldest, most revered churches in the world, and yet they tried to bomb it. I'm standing in what for centuries has been the prime church in Rome, for that matter in all of Western Christendom, St. John Lateran. This church was founded by Constantine the Great in the year 314. It had been standing open for more than 16 centuries. Then in 1993, a bomb went off, heavily damaging this ancient church, a bomb planted by terrorists. I'm Edmund Prodham, and for the next hour, we will be exploring the connection between world events and the 7 signs of Christ's return, as found in the Old and New Testaments of the Bible. Many people bound to the Gregorian calendar see a relationship between the horrendous events of the 90s and the new millennium. Millions of churchgoers see the terrorism, the moral decay, and the natural disasters that so characterize this decade as conditions pointing to the second coming of Jesus Christ. They're asking, is ours the generation that the prophets were pointing their fingers at? Are the end times at hand? Millions believe that there are several events that must take place before Christ returns to this world. The Bible foretells of 7 momentous events that will herald the second coming of Christ. I'm not a theologian, of course, but I can recognize that one of these events is contemporary history. And another event is history in the making. The first event, or sign, is the greatest homecoming in human history, and the bloodiest. The return to the Holy Land of the Jewish people, a biblical promise fulfilled in our century. The second is the welding of Western Europe into an unprecedented superpower, a union being forged in this very hour. The third, the rise of a dictator whose monstrosities could dwarf even those of Adolf Hitler. The fourth, the worldwide dominance of a new religion, whose godhead will be Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet, the unholy Trinity. The fifth is the building of the third temple of Jerusalem, on a site where one of the holiest shrines of Islam now stands, a site that many Muslims have promised to shed their blood to defend. The sixth, an invasion of Israel by ruthless armies from the north, who will not be defeated by military force, but by the catastrophic forces of nature, of a magnitude never before known. And finally, the bloodiest, most destructive battle ever to be fought by human beings, Armageddon. These are the 7 signs of Christ's return. A 1,000 years before they planted their bomb, St. John Lateran's was the Pope's church. On New Year's Eve of the year 999, Pope Sylvester II said Mass here for a congregation clad in sackcloth and ashes, the trappings of penance for one's sins. Many of the rich in the congregation had given away their lands. Others had freed their bondsmen. Now, in fear and dread, they waited for the church bells to usher in a new millennium and the second coming of Jesus Christ. The bells rang out. It was now the year 1000, but Christ did not appear. Without event, the sun rose on that first day of a new millennium. Today, people are searching for signs, for explanations for the mounting tragedies of the 90s. Sudden earthquakes, volcanoes exploding in cyclonic winds of ash and pitch. Darkness at noon. Hurricanes, fierce and frequent. Assassinations. Terrorism, before which the world's most powerful governments seem helpless. The carnage of war and the spectre of AIDS. Is our Earth like a toy top in its final spin? People want answers. Some seek them in a haze of auras, in the properties of crystals, in tarot cards, in astrological chartings of the heavens. Many Christians argue that there's no need for stargazing. They claim to see clear-cut signs of Christ's imminent return, though they admit that they don't know exactly when this will take place. They don't claim to be God's mind readers. This book, which occupies a drawer in most hotel rooms, has been translated into just about every language on earth. About 25% of all that's written in the Bible is prophecy. There are dozens of prophecies dealing with Christ's coming into this world, but there are hundreds of promises related to Christ's second coming. Some prophecies describe the times we live in. Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, famine, and pestilence, and fearful events, and great signs from heaven. Many of the Bible's prophecies were fulfilled centuries ago. Some are being fulfilled now, in our lifetime. And there are others, like God's wrath pouring down over the earth, that we hope will be in the far distant future. Many Christians are asking, can it be that these prophecies will converge in our lifetime? Let us delve deeply into these prophecies. We will learn that like the 7 candles of a menorah, they light the 7 signs, signaling the return of Jesus Christ. We discover the first sign, Israel restored. The prophecies are crystal clear. Christ will not return to this world until after the restoration of the Jewish people to nationhood. On that New Year's Day of the year 1000, there was no need for Christians to panic at the time the Jewish people were scattered over the globe. Today, the Jews can celebrate their return to the land that their God had promised them. And what a land they've made of it. The dry, dead bones of the past sprang to life. Thousands upon thousands of trees were planted. Desert was turned into orchards. The modern Israelis have made themselves worthy of an ancient promise, but not without bloodshed. The Jewish people as a nation began when the patriarch Abraham obeyed his God's command.
Leave your country and go to the land I will show you.
This is the land his God promised him, a crossroads between Asia and Europe, at the heart of where civilization began, a land of wild hills and salt-encrusted shores. Geographically, the ancient Jews were wedged in between the superpowers of Egypt and Assyria, and surrounded by peoples determined to drive them out of the land they believed God had assigned to them. Then, as now, the Promised Land was plagued by constant warfare. In time, Assyria conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. Its 10 tribes are lost to history. Later, the southern kingdom of Judah was overwhelmed by the forces of Nebuchadnezzar, and its people carried off to Babylon in chains. When the Persians crushed Babylon, Abraham's descendants were free to go back to the Promised Land. Then the Promised Land was occupied by Rome. Rome built cities, Rome built baths, Rome built amphitheaters, and Rome brought in her gods.